What is going on, guys? So every now and again, I watch a film that completely takes me by surprise and that becomes a new favorite for me. And this film, despite its really difficult and harrowing subject matter, immediately became a favorite. And this is going to be a director that I visit his entire catalog because I was completely and totally shook up by how amazing this film is. And the movie I'm going to be talking about today is The Hunt. The Hunt is directed by Thomas Vinterberg. A teacher lives a lonely life, all the while struggling over his son's custody. His life slowly gets better as he finds love and receives good news from his son, but his new luck is about to be brutally shattered by an innocent little lie. So the reason why I was drawn to this film, other than the amount of people who constantly praise it, is that it stars Mads Mikkelsen, who I believe is one of the greatest actors who has ever worked. I was obsessed with the television show Hannibal. I think that anytime he shows up, even in like Star Wars Rogue One, anytime he shows up in anything, he gives the best performance possible, even as the villain in Doctor Strange. He is just such an amazing actor that really just chews up the scenery. His line delivery is incredible. Just his bodily movements, facial performances, everything about Mads is what makes an amazing actor. And this film is probably one of the most depressing, upsetting, unsettling, and sad films that I've ever watched in my entire life. The story, obviously, as the synopsis says, Mads Mikkelsen plays this teacher, and he works at a kindergarten taking care of these kids. And he is truly just one of the most beloved and cared for people in the entire community. And he's going through a divorce, and he's struggling to get custody of his son. And finally, he gets to a point where his wife caves and is going to let his son come live with him. He's dating one of the women who work at the kindergarten, and his best friend and his wife live nearby, and he's constantly walking home their daughter who lives with him, who goes to the kindergarten, because they're constantly, like, the couple is constantly having arguments together. And so Mads Mikkelsen is just a great guy who walks her home, because she's clearly, from early on, she's got I don't know what kind of like issues that she has, but it could be like OCD or compulsion. Like, she has to walk on the lines on the street, and there's all kinds of things that are happening. So there's a scene early on in the film where she's at home and one of her older brothers runs by, and he's got like porn pulled up on his like tablet or computer or whatever, and shoves it in the little girl's face or whatever, and makes a comment about the guy's penis on there and the way it looks, and then they run off. And she's just kind of like sitting there awestruck for a moment. And so then it goes to the next day, and she is completely enamored with Mads Mikkelsen's character. She just loves him because he cares for kids. And so they're in there, and she like ends up making him this like little heart thing, and they're like playing this game together, and she ends up like tackling him on the ground and kissing him on the mouth. And he pulls her aside and says like, hey, that's not okay. Like, kids don't do that with grown-ups. You don't do that. And she like tries to give him that heart, and he says, no, you should give that to one of the kids in the classroom, like, or give it to your mom or your dad or whatever, and handles the situation really professionally, and like he should as a teacher in that situation. Well, she ends up having a conversation with the head of the kindergarten and accusing him of showing her his penis. And so because of that happening, it becomes this whole big controversy throughout the town. The way that the principal handles the situation, and the way that the entire situation is perceived. And it becomes this one little thing, because this kid, she's young and she doesn't really know, the impact of what that's going to do to someone's life. And she's just angry in that moment and how she's perceiving that situation. And watching how one little thing sets up all these little chain of events, and watches this man's life just sort of collapse in front of him because of how he's perceived in the community, and how, even though it's going to be taking at the word of what is being said, and obviously in this society we live in, where there's so many sickos and awful human beings, like the word of a child, it's going to be really hard to not take a child's word seriously. And so this film really looks at society as a whole through a really unique lens. And I thought what was really fascinating about this movie, it came out in 2012, and obviously this was pre-Me Too movement and pre-like cancel culture or whatever you want to say about it. And I thought that it was a really interesting inverse look at what it would be like for someone if they were put in a situation that it was like a wrongfully accused scenario, which I noticed, like, this film has incredible reviews. People absolutely love it, but the few qualms that I see with it, with the film, are like, oh, this would make it more difficult for people to believe victims. But I think what's really hard as a whole is, like, as a society, and if we look at it as a whole, it's like every situation is different. Every circumstance is different. Like, it's going to be about the people that are involved in that specific circumstance. Like, those people are going to know what happened. The correct way to handle types of situations are to go through law enforcement and to do all of those types of things, which is what the movie explores. Is like, it's handled, it's taken to law enforcement. All of these different things are happening, but it's more of like the power of a lie and the power of like groupthink mentality, and it really gets very difficult to watch. And there are some scenes in this that, like, I was bawling, crying so hard, because it was just so difficult to watch a person who was so wonderful and loving and caring getting to a point in his life that he was finally going to get his kid back, finally get this situation that he wants with his life, and everything just sort of spirals out of control. And I think, even looking at the controversial subject matter that is so difficult to watch and like is just really harrowing and saddening, it despite all of that subject matter, it really just kind of looks at life in general, and how when things can get good, something can happen to spiral things out of control. And I think there's bits and pieces that anyone can put themselves into amidst taking away the really intense, upsetting subject matter that the movie covers. And I think it is handled really well. And I think, like I said, the performances are brilliant. The cinematography is amazing. It's just an absolutely incredible viewing experience that's not for the faint of heart. It's really difficult subject matter, and I think if it's not something that like you feel like you could stomach, I would 100% would avoid it. But otherwise, I think it's an absolutely beautiful piece of cinema that everyone should check out. So have you seen The Hunt? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Leave me a comment down below and let me know what you thought. I thought this movie was absolutely brilliant. Took me by surprise. One of the best films I've watched all year this year, even though it came out in 2012. As always, if you can like the video and subscribe to the channel, it helps me out a lot and lets me know the type of content you're looking for. I'm always putting out new material and look forward to getting more out for you in the near future. And as always, everyone, thank you so much for watching, and have a great rest of your day.